All right, good morning. That video is exciting, but it's also one that we need to update almost weekly. And it's one of a place that some of you know intimately well, while others of you are visiting and trying to take in why are we here and why is Orlando the MetaCenter? So over the next 10 or so minutes, we're just going to walk through the story of what got us here today, of what brings us all together and why we're in this place and not another city. What I want you to understand about the MetaCenter is that this isn't an aspirational goal. It's not one that we're trying to become. It's actually tapping into our history and who we already are. It's just that the world gave us a reference point with the Web3, the Metaverse terminology. It gave the world a way to put their arms around what's here in Orlando. The first thing that I want to bring you back to, the mid-19th century here on the Space Coast, if you were to get in a car right now and head 45 minutes to the east, you'd arrive at the Space Coast. And so for the last 50 plus years now, this has been an epicenter of the space industry. And so in many regards, what was cattle and citrus here in Central Florida soon became to be about rockets and shuttles. And to do that, you need an entire ecosystem, you need an entire talent pool. And so this deep history in space is one of the propelling mechanisms to bring us to where we are today with the MetaCenter. And not only was the space race underway, but there was also a piece of property being built to the south, Walt Disney World. And so these two pools of creativity and innovation combined to really produce what we now know as the MetaCenter. Let me zoom in just a little bit. If you haven't seen a rocket launch from downtown Orlando, that's what it looks like. So between here and there, between where the shot's taken and where the rocket is launching, is one of America's largest research parks where a lot of this technology is born, developed, tested, and brought to the Space Coast. Right next door is one of America's not only largest universities, but one that was in fact founded to provide talent to the space program. So with so much talk about aligning talent with jobs and industries, here in Orlando, we have an example of when a university is established, not only for the benefit of the area and the residents, but to propel an industry forward. So not only the largest, but for instance, the largest concentration of AR, VR faculty and research in the world. Let me fast forward you to 2019. So 2019, this event, the predecessor event, we were at Ace Cafe for those that were there. And we had just come off the heels of Steve Case and the Rise of the Rest coming to Orlando to kick off their 2019 tour. In fact, what they found taps into this history, and it was unexpected to them, but very expected for us. They had more startups compete in their competition in Orlando than any other city they visited in 8 years. They were surprised. And so as part of the Rise of the Rest, of making sure that technology hubs exist outside of the main 2 or 3 that we've had historically in the US, that these cities were given the exposure and the resources and connections. And so this was an important moment in 2019 of bringing the tech community together, not only for Synapse, but also for Rise of the Rest. In fact, in standing on stage and the energy that was in the place, there was so much hope and optimism that we've hit an inflection point that the rest of the world was beginning to learn a little bit more about Orlando being a tech hub. And then, as we all know, the pandemic happened. And the pandemic forced all of us to adapt, to focus, to really lean into the trends that were accelerating during the pandemic. But there was one thing that really remained constant here in Central Florida throughout that entire time, and that's growth. The growth never stopped. In fact, for the last 50 years, our region has grown by 1,000 people a week, every week. So imagine this entire conference moving to Orlando, and that's net population growth. So that story of growth, it is one that fuels our story. Part of what underlies that growth is when you look at jobs. So when you look at the 1.3 million people in the workforce here in Central Florida, 91,000 are in tech. That is not a small pool. It's one that includes so many that we wouldn't think of in the tech space. But if you haven't been recently to one of the theme parks or attractions here in Central Florida, what you'd find is some of the most advanced technologies, some of the most leading edge AR, VR applications. And it's one that harnesses the power of that entertainment and gaming and brings it together with the innovation and the deep tech from the space program. In fact, that job growth of getting to 91,000, just over the last decade, we've had 24,000 tech jobs. That's growing at 36%. So we clearly have the talent. We clearly have the university. In fact, and compare this to other places that you're familiar with, within a 100-mile radius of downtown Orlando, you have 500,000 college students. So when companies are looking for growth and they're looking for where the talent is and where the talent will move to and where the talent is attracted, Orlando has been leading that charge and is now second in the country of the large metros as it relates to job growth. So it's nothing new to us, but it's sometimes new to people that only know us for their great vacation. There's just a lot more. And over the last year and a half, 2 years, the rankings, whether it's the top city for IT talent, the most connected city in the US, best place to work in tech, the rankings, this is cold down. The rankings continue to come as the data suggests what we've known here in Orlando and just been able to capture with the MetaCenter. In fact, a few more proof points coming out of the pandemic. The rest of the world began to take notice as these companies went public. Some headquartered here, some as part of the capital raise expanding into the market. So you're looking at a clean tech leader in PureCycle. You're looking at a leader in LiDAR technology, which we have central to our innovation economy here in Luminar. You have one of the sort of niche US-owned pure play global foundries that has expanded here and is operating a fab lab about 30 minutes to the south in Osceola County. You have a leader in vertical takeoff. You have a leader in destination. And then recently, just this month, Falcons Beyond. So the story is becoming more well-known. There's more proof points and more examples for people to see, not just one industry sector, but a variety of industry sectors leveraging technology. In fact, over the last couple of days, I'm guessing you met some of these companies that have recently expanded their operations here, maybe relocated some operations here. These are just a handful of companies that are here participating in MetaCenter Global Week that have been projects over the last few years as they tap into this talent pool, this pool of innovation, our research university, and understanding really what's possible as these technologies sort of move from what has traditionally been the defense sector into all sectors. So the MetaCenter, I think as you can see, is not something that we're looking to become. It's something that we are. It's something always in a state of becoming. But the history, I just want to run down a few of the technologies that underlay the metaverse, from AR and VR, the VA's leading simulation center in America is hosted here. From the gaming perspective, you have EA. If you've ever played Madden, that was made here in Orlando. There's Iron Galaxy 302 Interactive Unity Game Sim. In addition, UCF's graduate video game program has been ranked top program of its kind in the world multiple times. From AI, Orlando headquartered Advent Health, who you've probably seen on stage at some point this week, has partnered with GE Health to open the nation's largest mission control command center using AI technology to monitor the patients across America. Siemens Orlando operation uses digital twin and AI technology for MindSphere, which is meant to simulate power plant models. And the list goes on. There's also 3D reconstruction. For instance, Creole. Many of you are familiar with UCF's College of Optics and Photonics. And it's a world leader, and companies that have come out of the program and expanded here: Luminar, Neomatrix, Lensar, Dash, Symmetry, Dot Decimal, TrueScan. So companies in a variety of sectors. I mentioned just to the south of us, a growing semiconductor cluster, anchored right now by Skywater Technologies. What has been, I think, maybe best understood about our underlying technology, though, as it relates to the metaverse, is our global leadership in modeling, simulation, and training. Just when you look at government procurement, when you look at defense, all the US military branches are here in Orlando. You may not think of us as a military town, but over history, we certainly have been. And for those of you that landed at MCO, as McCoy Air Force Base. And so the property that continues to be developed, the connectivity we have of serving over 100 direct destinations from Orlando is now an asset from a tech standpoint. But that history in defense still brings to Orlando companies over $6 billion a year in contracts just from the defense sector alone. And as we see this technology spreading into multiple sectors, the companies that have benefited for so long in that space are now seeing plenty of opportunities with the adoption in healthcare and education and others. But what would a tech conference be without one more thing? Someone got it. So over the last couple of years, we've developed what is the country's first regional digital twin. So we've taken 800 square miles, 40 of which are in high fidelity, and put it into Orlando's digital twin. So when we talk about Orlando, we don't simply have to use old technology. We can bring them into this immersive experience to understand the spatial connectivity between the Space Coast and UCF and the airport and Neo City and up in Lake Mary, where we have a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So this understanding is phase one. We're now working with industry to use this to run scenarios, to plan for utility investments, to look at electrification, to look at all of the decisions that local governments have to make, utilities, telecom providers, developers have to make, and leveraging the technology of this digital twin being built here in Orlando first in partnership with Unity. So essentially the Orlando video game is now going to enable innovation further in our community. And I just want to end essentially with a call to action. So there are lots of places to consider where to set up your business, where to expand your business. But if you're looking for a place that's full of opportunity, that's full of growth, that has to have the highlight reel updated on a weekly basis, and you want to feel that energy that you have here at MetaCenter Global Week, the Orlando Economic Partnership has a booth. We have probably a dozen people here to help make that a seamless experience for you to transition and expand into this market. And we hope all of you will find your way to the MetaCenter. Thank you.